Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. This is a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. It's the most important news and editorial of the day that is relevant for both prelims and mains examination perspective will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 21st of November. The first important news, that is COP-27 set up losses and damages fund. Second, India craft digital privacy law. This is from the explained page. Third, sanctity of Supreme Court collegium decision. Fourth, CGI backed for lower income tax rate cuts and white goods. And the last is an editorial, a reform much ignored. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before I begin this session, those of you who are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is COP-27 set up loss and damage fund, something very important. This is related to the climate finance issue, which India has been long advocating for. You can expect a direct question in the mains examination. And this is important under the topic of General Studies paper 3, not paper 2. So this is precisely important for GS paper 3 under the subtopic, that is conservation, environmental pollutions, degradation and EIA. Delegates at the United Nations conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, which is there in Egypt, the name of the venue becomes very important, and even the map work is very significant for prelims examination. Said that they have established the loss and damage fund, this is called L&D fund, to compensate the most vulnerable countries from the climate linked crisis or disaster. Loss and damage cover a broad sweep of climate impacts, from the bridges, homes washed away in the flash flooding, threatened disappearance of the culture, and Hosel Island as a creeping rise in the sea level. Due to climate change, across the globe, it has been witnessed that the sea level is on the highest side. The fund will lead to the provisions for assistance to the countries impacted by the climate change. So this is a kind of a compensation that will be provided to the developing countries. COP27 saw significant progress in adaptations, with government agreeing on way forward to the goal adaptations. Basically, अगर global goal adaptations की बात करें, उसके तरफ आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश है, which will include and conclude in COP28. So things that has started will continue till COP27 and 28. So 27 started and ending by 28. The new pledges totaling more than $230 million were called for the adaptation fund for 2027, right? So this is a fund which will be something very important. This COP27 meeting is something that invariably has basically institutionalized the climate finance issue, which will definitely will be taking a toll in COP28 as well and subsequent COP meetings. इंडिया की क्या रिस्पॉन्स रही है इस फंड को लेकर के? द यूनियन मिनिस्टर फॉर एनवायरनमेंट एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज हैज कॉल्ड दिस अ हिस्टोरिक कोप, adding that the world has waited too long for the loss and damage fund agreement, something very important for the prelims examination. A direct question can be framed here. He stated that India's welcome effort to address climate change, and India has kept mitigation in agriculture out of its NDC. Agriculture accounts for 17% of India's GDP in primary sources of livelihood and about 58% of its population. Developed countries response की अगर बात करें, developed countries, particularly the United States, have been opposing the new fund out of the fear that it will hold them more liable for the massive damage caused by the climate change. It is evident from the fact that US is the largest emitter, and after this obligation fund, US will have to contribute substantially in this fund to the developing countries, because US has something which is on the higher side of the emissions. Even China and other countries are emitting on the higher side. और इंडिया की अगर बात करें, emissions काफी कम है compared to many developed countries. Now, talking about the net zero emissions target for India, as per the World Energy Output Report, the International Energy Agency said that India's ambitions to achieve net zero emissions by 2070 can play a significant role in limiting the global heating. Developed countries की अगर बात करें, even for India, The damage that rich country and counterpart has done was something before 2050 will give 1.5 degrees Celsius goal to fight the survival, and the world is projected to cross 2.3 degrees Celsius warming if drastic changes are enacted immediately. Now, the second news, India's draft digital privacy policy, something important for general studies paper 2. That is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementations. So the new digital personal protection bill that was released recently focused on personal data compared to the earlier draft, which was a revamped version that the government has come up with. The reworked version of the legislation incorporate hefty penalties on the non-compliance. अगर किसी भी तरह से non-compliances होती है तो उसकी penal provisions काफी strong रखे गए हैं. There could be two potential significant red flags. First is near blanket exemption for the government agencies for complying with some of the more onerous requirement under the bill. उसके अलावा the dilutions की बात करें of the remit of the proposed data board, which was mandated to oversee the provisions of the proposed legislation. So this data board, the data protection board, this is also known as DPB, will be very important, which will be acting and mandated to see over its provisions and even call for more grievance redressal in this regard. The larger policy include Comprehensive Digital India Act that would eventually replace the IT Act and the new data protection bill that will be unveiled in the new telecom bill and the public domain for the last one. Now, data protection laws in geographies की अगर बात करें across the globe, किस तरह से data protection काम कर रही है दूसरे countries में, according to the data presented by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, it is estimated that 137 out of 194 countries has a legislation to secure the data and privacy, with West Africa and Asia showing 61%, 33 countries out of 54, and 57% adopted it respectively. Only 48% of the least developed countries has shown that the data protection and the privacy laws. Now, EU model की अगर बात करें, EU में किस तरह से यूरोपियन यूनियन कंट्रीज में कैसे डेटा प्रोटेक्शन काम कर रही हैं. The General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR, focuses on comprehensive data protection for protecting of the personal data. It has been criticized for excessively extending and imposing many obligations to the organization posing data, but it's a template for most of the legislation drafted around the world. The EU is in the right to privacy enshrined in the fundamental right that seeks protection of the individual dignity and right to the data that generated, right? The European Union fundamental right recognizes the right to privacy and even protect the personal data that is backed by the comprehensive data framework. EU की मॉडल बेसिकली जनरल डेटा प्रोटेक्शन लॉज के अंदर कंप्रीहेंसिवली फोकस करती है एंड इट इज बैक्ड बाय द कंप्रीहेंसिव डेटा प्रोटेक्शन फ्रेमवर्क. नाउ यूएस मॉडल की अगर बात करें तो प्राइवेसी प्रोटेक्शन इज डिफाइंड as a liberal protection focuses on protection of individual personal space and government. It is viewed as being something that is focuses enable collection of the personal data informations and individual inform for such collections. That template has been viewed as inadequate and the key aspect for the regulations. Now, what is China model? China model is something new channel on data privacy is something that is secured over 12 months and include personal information that is PIPL which come into effect on November 2021. It gives China the principle of right and it will seek prevention for the misuse of the personal data. The data security law which come into force in 2021 require business data to categorize by level of importance and put restrictions on the cross-border transfer. Even if you talk about China, they have a privacy law, even they have very strict data privacy law in terms comparing to the other countries, specifically in Asian countries. Now, India's draft bill and red flags. So wide-ranging exemptions to the center and the significance, there's no little safeguard. And the reduced independence has been there in the proposal of the Data Protection Board are among the key concerns that is flagged by the expert. Now, it is also worthy noting that the bill has just 30 clauses compared to more than 90 previous one, mainly because of the lot of operational details that is left to subsequent rule making. Now, the general government can issue notifications to exempt the agencies adhering the provisions to the draft law concerning the national security reasons. तो national security की अगर बात हो, गवर्नमेंट किसी भी तरह से किसी कंपनी को sanctions कर सकती है. The draft now leaves the appointment of the chairperson and the members of the Data Protection Board entirely on the discretion of the central government. This can be a very important point and a question can be framed in the prelims as a two statement questions. Now, sanctity of the Supreme Court Collegium decision, something important for General Studies Paper 2, structure, organization, and function of executive and judiciary. Recently, the lawyers protest over the report that the transfer of Gujarat and Telangana High Court judges may have brought judiciary and the government closer to the need to protect the sanctity of the Supreme Court Collegium decision, because this is the apex body, or you can say the setup that look into the transfer of the judges, transfer and appointment of the judges. The Union Law Minister's statement has said that the transfer and ensuring to protect that before the CGI-led collegium has published the resolutions and the proposed transfer on the Supreme Court website. So still, if India is operating with the collegium system, it is very important to maintain the sanctity and the decision that is taken by the Supreme Court collegium. Right? This is the due respect that has to be given. Working of collegium की अगर बात करें, collegium is a system one in which group of the most senior judges appoint the higher judiciary and even practice nearly 3 decades. It's almost close to 30 years that this system is in working. Its importance lies in the fact that the opinion of this collegium is of the primacy, and the matter of the appointment of the High Court and Supreme Court are well transferred. And the legal basis it is found that series of the 3 judges usually referred to as judge cases concerning the higher judiciary. Its a manner of functioning and has been laid down in the form of memorandum of procedure. So in judiciary, this procedure is known as memorandum of procedures. Now, CII bats for the lower income tax rate, GST cut for the white goods, something important for General Studies Paper 3, that is Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization, resource growth and development. Now, flagging the need to revive the consumption demand in Indian economy, the Confederation of Indian Studies, that is CII, Confederation of Indian Industries, has urged the government to reduce the personal taxes rate in the Union Budget 2023 and 2024. So, a prior consultation has been made, and this is something to ensure that the household income spending power, which is slashed by 28% of the GST rate, some consumer durable, and entering job creation, that is probably a hinderland to the purposes, right? So it is very important that government should be looking into each and every aspect where household spending power should be given, slashing of the GST rate should be there, there's some consumer durable which is on the higher side should be there, and even government should call for engaging more and more youth in the employment sector. Talking about the corporate tax rate, seeking a status quo on the corporate tax rate, the CII has said that reviving up of the private investment is critical for the public capital spending, not enough to energize the growth. अगर इंडियन इकोनॉमी की अगर बात करें तो the reaching the capital spending to 3.4% to the next GDP from 2.9% should be the target of the government. Ahead of the commencement of the formal budget consultation, the industry's bodies has pleaded the union government to ensure no arrest or detention in the place, and even unless criminalization in the business has been proved beyond doubt. Now, push for export. To push export, which recorded the first decline in 20 months in October, the CIA has emphasized the need to rationalize import duty and graded roadmap that is shift to the competitive level. It has also asked the inclusions of all export products, including those from the export-oriented units, special economic zones under the export duty remission scheme, which government has launched. Now, the industry's body should also ask the GST Appellate Tribunal and National Advanced Authority ruling to be set up on priority and taxpayer facing the filling appealing of the High Court, and even especially for the rejection of funds, right? So their whole setup that is working in this direction. The government will definitely call for something that is even motivating the export in the country and even to the larger extent reducing the import. तो देखना होगा कोविड के बाद ये पॉलिसीज किस तरह से काम करेगी. मैक्सिमम इंक्लूजन ये होनी चाहिए कि एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा की जा सके. Moving to the editorial of the day, a much reform ignored, something important for General Studies Paper 2, that is government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementations. So what I'll be discussing in this editorial, first looking into the theme of this article or editorial, talks about the theme, that is multi-prolonged actions for quasi-judicial agencies, where we look into the background and multi-prolonged action plan. There are 10 action plan that we'll be discussing one by one. So there's a clash of judicial agencies that are not discussed in the conversation of the pendency of the cases. अगर बात करें, जब बात होती है किस तरह से केसेस पेंडिंग है, बहुत सारे ऐसे क्वासी जुडिशियल बॉडी है जिनके फंक्शन को लेकर के काफ़ी सवाल उठाए गए. They're generally handled by the revenue authorities and largely related to land tendency, exercise, mining, prevention functions under the CPC, that is the Criminal Procedures Code, जिसको CRPC भी कहते हैं. Now, there's a hierarchy among the four that usually judiciary procedures like appeal and revision are made on the superior authorities. The discussion of the superior authorities are binding, especially to the highest forum, for instances, the Board of Revenue in many states. The functioning of these bodies are paramount importance as they deal with the vital land and related issues. The most critical issues faced by the system is the lack of adequate supervisions and owned by the administration and political leadership. क्या क्या ऐसे एक्शन प्लान या अप्रोच बताए गए हैं जिनके थ्रू बेसिकली थिंग्स कैन चेंज एंड हाउ इट इज इफेक्टिवली वर्किंग. इफ यू राइटिंग इन मेंस पेपर स्पेसिफिकली, आप ये पॉइंट्स वहां पे भी हाईलाइट कर सकते हैं. The first action plan that is called for the government should make an efficient functioning of these agencies with priority to clear articulate the position on the issues. The second will be the detailed data functioning of the agencies that must collect and publish the data from time to time. At least annually it should be publishing. For every year that should be published. There should be laid down the concerned legislation and the results should be based on the decision regarding the rationalization of staff strength as well. Third, that is an electronic platform should be established to handle the acclaimatory work related to the administration of justice and such of the filing complaint issues, the summon movement of the record between the courts. Fourth will be the annual inspections of the subordinate court should be there mandatorily and should be important indicators for assessing the superiority of the authority. Inspections should be based on the customized training of the presiding officers. Now, fifth is interdisciplinary research on functioning of this court should be encouraged. जो interdisciplinary research है उसे भी आगे बढ़ाने की जरूरत है, so that this would identify the area of improvement in the legal reform and issues the clear guidance. So clarity and even the analysis part need to be more researched. Sixth would be regular training and orientations for adjudicating authorities should be taken from time to time. And if possible, they deliver customized orientation for the adjudications officer on the area of weakness benefit is likely to be multiplied. Seven, that the state index of the performance of the quasi judicial court should be published. It draw the attentions of the state to perform its comparison and other help to identify the area and weaknesses. Eight, the important decision guideline and directions could not be compiled to published in the portal of the apex adjudicating forum of the Board of Revenues. So this will definitely help the lower level agencies as well. Ninth, the second last, that is most rigorous induction training program of the official should be there for the judicial work handling. Usually the training academics, the center and the state level should focus on executive magistrate court rather than the revenue courts. The importance of judicial work should be instilled among the training and should be there with the confidence handling them to the development. The 10th is the procedural reforms such as minimizing adjournment, mandatory filing, and written argument should be there to perform the proposed bodies and law. Commission for Reform has a civil procedures code which should be adopted to adjudicating bodies, and these bodies should be imbibing in the power so that that is actually helping in the overall reform with the law commission's recommendation that is given. So if you're writing in mains paper, आप इस तरह के जितने 10 points हैं, if you're writing almost 6 to 7 point also, that will be sufficient for the exam requirement. But आप कुछ points जरूर note down कर ले and you should revise it so that you can reproduce in the examination. Moving to the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of your study questions. For first question, the correct option is B. For second question, the correct option is C. Today's MCQ for practice, आपको बताना है Sandis recently seen in the news is related to GI enabled tracking system of the sand dunes, security, social security scheme, instant messaging app of the GOI, a news for fertilizer developed by ICR New Delhi. Second is regarding the SAT. Many a times UPSC has tend to ask the question with regards to tribunal. The SAT की अगर बात करें, is the statutory body established under the provisions of SEBI Act 1992. The presiding officer of SAT shall be appointed by the presiding officer. So you have to check for the correct options and practice this type of question will help you to get an extra edge on the upcoming prelims examination. This was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis. followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.